Hey folks, oh sorry about that. I do apologize for these last few days. I've had to move things around because I accidentally came down with a really bad sickness. And then of course there was my daughter's birthday, so I had to rearrange that. But here we are with another tour stop for the amazing Michelle Rene. She is a award-winning author, and I have had the privilege of reviewing her book Tattoo, which I found to be is literally something I have not seen when it comes to writing. So it was like reading poetry. But while we wait for her to arrive on our show, I thought I would let you guys know that our bookish giveaways are still going on, and I have made up some bad weather days. Here she is. Hello, gorgeous.
How are you, dear?
It has been forever. I miss your lovely voice and your beautiful face and all that gorgeous stuff about you.
I miss you too, lovey.
Anyway, guys, this is the lovely lady I writer like her. So, Miss Michelle, thank you for coming and taking the time out of your incredibly busy writing schedule and baby taking schedule. She has the most adorable son. Seriously, guys. To come and talk with us. So let's get this party started with brief introductions. I've already introduced myself. It is your turn, ma'am. Take it away.
Okay, hi, I'm Michelle Rene. I am an author of historical fiction as well as fantasy, sci-fi. I have won quite a few awards, so yay me. But I've been writing for a very long time, so I would hope that eventually I would win something. I've been writing for probably about 15 years or so, been published like the last, I don't know, since like 2013. So I've had about 10 books published. So that's me.
She's amazing, guys. She really is. She's one of my best and dearest friends. And something about that award winning is she just got shortlisted. Tell us about your recent shortlist. I saw it on Chanticleer. Come on.
Yes. I got it. It's for this book, Candy Cathedral. This is my latest, or one of my latest. That's a sequel to this book, Manufacture Witches,
which I need to get, by the way.
So these are, I call them kind of historical fantasy because they are set in historical times. That's in the Great Depression, but they're also more fantasy, and they actually fall into the LGBT plus, subcategory for young adult fiction. So Candy Cathedral just came out. This is my shortlister. This one, thank you. This one is actually won the Ozma Award, and it won Best Young Adult Fiction Book in the state of Texas. So I was very nervous about the sequel coming out because it's like, oh, that's a lot to live up to, and a lot of times sequels are not as good as the first one, and then no one wants to read your third one. So I'm very glad that so far it's being well received. It makes me happy.
Is there a third one in that?
Yes, I am planning on there being a third one.
Oh, see, okay. Remind me after the show to order a couple from you because you know me and signed copies. I have to have my signed copies.
Oh yeah, I'll send you some.
Awesome, thank you. I can't wait. Those and the Dodo Night. I think I picked that up on Kindle, so I will definitely be picking up the Dodo Night and reading that one because that one was just. I saw the book trailer for that one. It's like, okay, I am a heavy this book. So I'm definitely behind. Speaking of behind, you know how in love with Tattoo I am. Is there a sequel? I know we talked about Behind the Curtains. Is there a possibility of being a sequel to that one?
Well, Tattoo, you mean the novella Tattoo?
Yes, the one.
Yeah, no, there's no sequels in the works for that one. That one's like, I work with a novella publisher with that one, and since Facebook kind of changed their marketing strategies and what you can and can't do, she's having a hard time marketing any of her novellas, so she's not taking on any new ones. So we haven't been, any kind of initial talks about doing a sequel to Tattoo has kind of gone out the window for the time being. Doesn't mean that it's never going to happen, but for right now. That's why it's like, it's really hard to get sequels made, because Candy Cathedral. Well, wasn't left on a super big, cliffhanger, but yeah.
Yes, it was. Yes, it was.
Well, and that's just the hardship of indie publishing. It's like, I've written sequels before, but Candy Cathedral is the first one I've ever gotten that like actually got published, because it's like you have to have the audience, and then you have to have the marketing behind it and all the other stuff. Well, you know how that goes.
Oh yeah.
So, so there's a lot of times that I want to write a sequel, but I just don't have the resources, or the publisher doesn't have the resources. So I just so I would say it's not a never for tattoo, but probably not in right now.
Okay, well, I still have high hopes, because I need continuation of that story. Even if I have to beg off screen, I will beg off screen. You know me well enough. I know. So I have a list of questions for you. I'm sure since you've done so many of these interviews, I'm pretty sure this is nothing new to you, but I'm going to do it anyway because.
Okay.
So my big starter here is obviously, what inspired you to put that spark in your engine to start writing?
I've always been a writer. Honestly, I wrote my first book when I was 13, and I like hand wrote 200-page book. So it's always been art, and it's been writing, and all the way through high school, it was like, am I going to be a writer, going to be an artist, writer and artist? But in high school, I was working actually for a video game company as a 3D artist making video games. And so I'm like, well, I have a better chance of paying bills if I go the art route. So I went to art school. And I did. I worked in video games for a very, very long time. But then even when I got out of college, it's still like that. I still wanted to tell stories desperately. And so I continued to write. And then, when you first start writing, you don't understand the business part of it. You're like, I wrote a book, yay! Now I just send it to any publisher, and they're gonna want to publish it. No, that's not how that works.
So, no. I just got a rejection.
Was like my third or fourth book that I wrote that finally like got published, and that was after years and years and years and years. So, I've since left the video game world, because it's a hard world to live in, especially if you've got a family, and it's just long, crazy hours. So I just devote all my time now to my books and my son. So, but yeah, the spark's always been there. I just have always been a storyteller. I can't not tell stories, and it like physically hurts me to not be coming up with some sort of something. So I don't know. It's just always been there.
Well, I know that I read your blog post on how to, what is it, snails, oh my gosh.
Oh, Snail to Sprint, yeah.
So tell us a little about that. Yeah, you are like.
Yeah, how to write your book in 4 weeks. So I wrote this for WOW Women on Writing, and it always comes back every October, because November is National Write Your Novel in a Month, and this is how to write your novel in 4 weeks. And this is like a compilation of classes I've taken on doing it, my own things that I found talking to other writers who are more prolific than I am, that how you can write so fast. Because I used to, when I started, it was like, oh, you're going to write, it's going to, you're just going to take at least a year, if not 2 or 3, to write a book. And it's just kind of like, okay, that's just what it is. I never thought until later, like, oh, you don't have to. You can write your first draft. And a lot of times it's better to write your first draft very quickly. That way you don't get bored with it. And I liken it to when you like writing a book is almost like having a relationship. It's like when you first start writing it, you're like so in love, and you're just infatuated. And then, you get a year into it and you're like, oh, I hate the way you like look at me. Don't chew so loud. It's kind of like you don't want to be around your own book. So if you write that first draft while you're still in love, you get a lot of those great, excited emotions out first. Then you can hate it later after you've edited
1,000,000 times.
Well, maybe not 1,000,000, but so yeah, that's my blog post is all about learning how to not fall down the deep, horrible black hole that is the internet, researching something, how to just push through, how to skip around to different chapters if you need to, just to keep going, and get that done. I think my record is I've written a first draft of a book. Now it was a younger audience book, so it was a shorter book, but I wrote a first draft of a book in 10 days. That's my record. Yeah, I was a little crazy at that point, a little manic, but I got it done.
Oh, I can imagine. You definitely can't, the industry, the way it's going, you definitely can't do the 1 to 2 and 3 year thing. It's just way too much speed going on right now. But do you edit while you write, or do you just like, nope, I'm just going to throw up on the...
Nope, not that first draft. No, the editing's for later. Because that's one of those, like, that's another thing I say in there is your editor is this like nagging, horrible person that's telling you how bad you are the whole time. And if you listen to it, then you're not, it's going to keep you from going forward. What you need to do is just get the words down. And then once that's over, you can go back through and listen to your editor and deal with all that later.
What do you say in the blog post? It's like, shut that jerk up, or something like that.
Yeah, it's like, just tell him I'm not going to listen to you right now. Here's a margarita. Go sit on the beach. We're not talking to you. I'm just getting this out. They get to live in their own little dungeon where I don't talk to them.
See, you heard it here, folks, from an award-winning author. Put that thing away.
Yeah, no editing that first draft. You just go. Editing is for later. And one thing that I find as a historical writer is you can get really bogged down in, like, researching. So you get most of your research out first, but then you're always finding stuff like, oh, you're writing and like, oh, I need a name for an English town from the 1500s. And the next thing you know, you're on there and you're searching that. And it's been 8 hours later, you're on YouTube watching funny dog videos. You're like, how did I get here? How did this happen? How did I even get to YouTube? But it happens. So whenever you come to something like that, like you need to insert the name of a city or a person, or you need to come up with a name for something, I just put a little ellipses and then write, find medieval city here. And then later when I come back, that's when, when you come back after your first draft, when it's your second or third draft, you go through and you go, oh, I was supposed to go find that city. And then you can put your city there. And that way it doesn't bog you down and send you to YouTube somehow. And then the next thing you know, you wasted 8 hours.
Yeah, don't follow the white rabbit.
Yeah, don't follow.
Okay, so tell us about your first published book. What was that journey like? I think was it Vincent was your first one, or?
Yeah, it was. I had two kind of come out at the same time, but Vincent was the main one. It was years and years of trying to figure out where I fit in the publishing world, and I'd finally gotten an agent. She wasn't representing Vincent, and she was trying to but she was a new agent as well, so she wasn't really sure what kind of an agent she was yet. And so we were sending stuff out, we weren't getting any luck. And I told her, hey, I'm writing this book about Vincent van Gogh. It's told by, this 8-year-old girl who knew him, and, it's from her point of view. And she's like, oh, great, send it to me. So I sent it to her, and she shut me down. She's like, you can't write an adult book from a child's perspective. You just can't. And then she's like, if this is what you're going to write, we can't work together. And so it was one of those, shocks to the system, because I had spent years trying to find an agent, years and years, and doing all the query letters and the conferences and stuff. And I finally found an agent, and she dumped me because of this book. And it was really the book that really launched my love of historical fiction and really got me going on it. So I'm like, screw it. I'm going to go figure out I'm just going to go submit to some indie publishers. That's where I found a publisher for it. And it got published with a small independent publisher. But it was also my first book that got awards, that got noticed. So it was, if you're out there and you're trying to get an agent, or you're dealing with editors and publishers, you just have to know that they're people, they make mistakes. They don't even really know what they're looking for. A lot of the publishing world is, I read this thing that's like, writers write what they want to write, agents read what they think people want to read, and then editors of publishing houses want what they can sell. And so you're trying to thread this needle to try to get in there. And a lot of times they don't even know what they're looking for. So you just have to push forward and just do what you got to do.
Yeah, as a publisher myself, I know that we see so many good books that we just love and would love to publish, but unfortunately, we have to, just say no. So yeah, for writers, definitely, and that's why indie publishing is so amazing. Is if you do it right, and authors, please, editors and professional cover designers, please, unless you can do it yourself. Indie publishing is perfectly viable, and that's perfectly okay because we are kind of strapped by some rules of our own. So oftentimes you can't take that personally. So I'm glad that you looked at it from our point of view, because sometimes we can get easily overlooked that we're just being mean.
Right. And that's the thing is, like, you don't, as a writer, you don't know why they said no. You have no idea. They could have something already on their list that's too much like yours and they don't want to come up with too much of that. Or it's just, they love it, but it's just not right for the list that they're trying to put out, or whatever. There's a lot of reasons. And more often than not, those don't get, communicated to the author. And it's not until you've done this a while that you learn to not take it personally. Now, don't get me wrong. I've gotten some really weird and mean rejection letters from agents, never from editors. Editors are always nice, but agents, I've gotten some weird stuff. Like, I actually got an auto response rejection. So, and I'm good. I look and see if the agent is actually accepting. This is what you always should do. Make sure you go to the agent, read what they want, if they're accepting queries at the time. So I looked her up and everything. I wrote her a personalized query letter. It came back like 3 seconds later. It was an auto response. Like, sorry, your project is not right for me. I've looked it over. I'm like, no, you haven't. That was 3 seconds ago. So
is that the one you posted on Twitter?
Mm-hmm. That was one of the funniest ones. It was really funny. But yeah, I mean, you get people who are unprofessional, but more often than not, they know that this is hard, so they might not always have the time to really communicate properly why they're not picking yours. But, but as an author, it's so personal. It's hard. It just takes a while.
It hurts. Yeah, I just got my rejection from my PitMat submission, but the beauty of it is I have this series behind me and I've got Vampire Chicago, so I've always got something published. So it's like that rejection sting is like, oh,
yeah. I mean, and that's
okay,
so
always be publishing.
Well, yeah, and that's the great thing is, like, another great advice to authors is don't ever just have one thing out there and hang all your hopes on that. Always have another project, or else you will go insane worrying about this thing that's on submission or whatever. You'll go insane thinking about it. So it's like, move on to that next project to occupy your brain, because, that's how the industry is now. And, 30, 40 years ago, it was, oh, you submit it to your editor and then they publish it. And then you have a year or two to come up with your next, but that's not how that works anymore. It hasn't worked out for a while. You have to just come up with stuff. And I had an agent tell me, like, well, Sue Monk Kidd, she takes like 5-6 years to write a book. I'm like, well, good for Sue Monk Kidd. She can afford to do that. But most writers can't. You can't just sit around for 5 or 6 years. People will forget about you.
Yeah, we can't all be Sarah J. Maas, which she is the sweetest person ever. I've had the pleasure of meeting her in person. But she did say, she's like, yeah, when I first published, it was like trickles of sales. I saw barely any sales.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't until she got like that second series out that everybody's like, oh, maybe I should start taking notice. So,
right. And you never know what's going to hit. Like with Manufactured Witches, I didn't think anything was really going to happen with this book. It was just this little weird young adult book I wrote, and it happened to get picked up by Black Rose Writing. And I was like, oh, cool. Yeah, that would be great if some people read it. And then all of a sudden it's like, boom. And then all of a sudden I've got this book that I really didn't have a ton of expectations for, turned into winning all these awards, and people want a sequel. And I'm like, oh, great. I finally will get a sequel made for one of these books that I've been writing. So
that's how it works, people. See, that's how it works. So
it's often the thing you don't expect to blow up is the thing that blows up.
Yeah, and it's definitely something that wasn't tropey. So if you think that writing Imposter, trope often the stuff that you hasn't seen before that gets picked up by randomness. So I will move on and quit rambling. How's that sound? Do you consider, I hate this term, so forgive me, okay? I can't stand the term pantser, but are you a plotter, a planner, or a, however we want to say this, because I hate that word.
Okay. Well, let's see. What are the difference? I know pantser is, you know, flying by the seat of your pants, and then plotter is.
I meant to say plantser. That's what it was. Plantser. I can't stand that word either. Yeah, plantser.
Okay. Well, I'll just tell you what I do. I always outline. I never used to be an outliner, but ever since I started writing fast, outline, absolutely outline. That's even if it's something as loose as chapter 1, you're introducing your characters. Chapter 2, some strange stuff happens. You know, chapter 3, the protagonist does something mean. You need to have that down, because one of the things I talk about in the article about writing fast is that there's always going to be chapters that aren't as fun to write, because they're like, oh, this is the chapter where we put in a lot of exposition and background about this, and it's not as fun as writing that fight scene that's 2 chapters over. And if you find yourself getting bogged down and you don't want to write, you can hop to that next chapter and write the fun chapter to get you going again. And if you have an outline to tell you where you're going, then you can easily put stuff back together, and you can hop around with confidence and do that. So I'm 100% into outlining. In fact, especially my historical stuff. Like, this is the other one that came out. This is Mod Circus, which is the one I sent you the giveaway for. This one.
Yes.
If I didn't have an outline for this thing, I would have lost my mind, because it's by far the longest book I've written, and it's about, this is Maud Wagner, the very first tattoo artist in North America. So the story follows her from, you know, late 1800s to the 1960s, and all of this little nuances and historical facts. And if I didn't outline that, I would have gone, I'd still be writing it. I would have gone insane. So yes, I 100% outline. That's what I do, at least.
So it's the connections between the as being a person who does beats, for me, I know it's always the interconnected steps. Like, I know the beats I want to hit. It's just, how do I get there?
Transitions change, and I can't. I mean, I won't tell you that every single chapter has ended up the way I was expecting it to. And there's always chapters that I end up adding because I'm like, oh, it would be a good chapter. But it's just more of, it keeps you on the right road, and it also helps to keep you from doing plot bunnies. Because, it's so easy to just kind of, and a lot of pantsers tell me they do this. It's like all of a sudden they're writing and like, it'll be a fun story. And then they're off into some other world that doesn't make any sense. And it's like, that's not helping your main storyline anymore.
Yeah, stay on that road.
Yeah, stay on the path. It's okay to entertain those, but, don't waste too much time on it unless you can tie that back into the story somehow. But yeah, I never really completely stick to the outline, but it's a good yellow brick road to follow.
Oh my gosh, see, that's the next rewrite I would love to see from you, is some sort of historical Dorothy
You're not the first person who's asked me to do I did Lewis Carroll, so I've had people say something, well, you should do something about Wizard of Oz, which is always one that has always intrigued me. I don't know if you ever saw the Perusa Bulk sequel to The Wizard of Oz that she did when she was 8. It was her first movie. It's called Return to Oz. It's probably my favorite Wizard of Oz show, but it's really, really dark and gritty. And I'm like, I would like to write a book about that one. They give Dorothy electroshock therapy and stuff, and it's creepy.
Oh my gosh. Wow. Yeah, that's dark. That could be a horror novel so easily.
But yeah, as a kid, as a weird little kid, I was like, that is great. And even as a writer now, I'm like, I totally want to write a book if it's based on something to do with that one.
So I might need to keep an eye on you, huh? See if we can find that Wizard of Oz retelling. So you get your chapter outline out, and then poof.
Yeah, as soon as I get my outline basically there, then I just sit down and go to town. And I get a lot of people ask me like, well, when do you write? And when, do you listen to music? I'm like, I've got a 7-year-old kid. I just write when I can, when he's at school, or the little bit of time I get before I go to bed, after he goes to bed. And I used to, like, before I had children, be able to sit down and like listen to music or something, really get in the space. Like, no, at this point, I find my time and I just get it done. Which I think a lot of moms who write, I'm sure you can relate. A lot of moms who write, you just get it done. You find the time.
That, or I took your advice because I liked your advice of you shall not pass on the room door. I got this photo. It says writing, do not enter if you need my attention.
Yeah, like unless the child is bleeding or the house is on fire, do not come in here. I will beat you with a cat. I think that's what mine says. Something like that. But yeah, because the kid will run in, my husband will run in, everyone will run in and need me in that second. Like, you guys don't need me. I'll lock the door, and if the sign's on, they have to leave me alone.
Well, at least they understand that. Mine will just be like banging on the door. It's like, I have to use the bathroom. There is another one in the hall. Grandma's in there. Well, you can wait.
Yeah, if they're worse about it, then I just put in earplugs and ignore them. Like, if it's real dire, he'll text me.
I definitely. Yeah, exactly. Call me from across the house. I don't care if it's really that bad.
Yeah.
So how do you develop these characters? How do you develop your plot? Because I know for a fact you are like a rich character developer person. So I know from experience how deep your characters are. How do you get those characters so, like real people? Like, you almost, I know for me, I was identifying with a lot of your characters in Tattoo. And I was like, how does she write this to the point? Because it's something like, which is just sad. In the very rare golden goose egg, I might get that. But it's like, how do you plot and how do you get your plot so rich and your characters so realistic?
That's a good question. I don't know. It's just one of those things. I read people very well, and I always have, and it drives people crazy sometimes because I really read into them and try to understand all these different weird people I meet. And a lot of times I pick little pieces out of certain, it could just be a random person I met and had a conversation with one time, but I'll take something about them and put them into some character. I rarely put myself into any characters. I will put pieces of something that I'm going through, like with my novel Hourglass that was about Calamity Jane, and it's from this point of view of a 12-year-old boy who has an autistic sister in the Wild West. And I had a lot of stuff with a lot of feelings about my son who's autistic got put into that book. But me, myself, I don't often get put into the book. But I take pieces from all these little interactions I have with people. And I just try to, every single character, even if they're a, secondary, third character, whatever, I try to think about when they're saying something, what's behind that? Or give them at least a little bit of a backstory in my own mind, even if you don't see it. And I know some people will do those worksheet interview things, like interview all of your characters, and then it, like an answer like it's the character, and that'll give you some depth. I never really have an easy time with that, but it works for some people. So
I don't do those either. I like write the way I do mine. My character backgrounds is I just write it like I'm writing a research paper. It's like just free writing all the way through. I can't do that either. It's like, what's their favorite age? What's their religious thing? It's like that just seems to me like a job interview, and I can't, staring at it, you can't really see. It's like, I don't think the character's going to sit and fill this out.
Yeah, I mean, and how much can you? Yeah, how much can you really get to know somebody by their job interview? Really, it's like that's so. But yeah, I don't know. A lot of my stuff I just try to pick out of people that I know, and then just dig in deeper.
That's good. Real life is always good inspiration. More folks need to use that. So I would ask this again, but you already kind of told us how you do it. But how much world building takes place before you start writing? Because we all know we can get lost in world building. and that alone could be its own book.
Yeah, so it's very different between if I'm doing historical fiction and then if I'm doing fantasy. Those are very different. So, you know, in historical fiction, it's kind of weird because there is already a world in place. But, you know, say like with Maud Circus, it's the world of, you know, turn of the century circus life and stuff like that. So it, you know, that's already an established place. But yeah, not everybody understands what that was like. So I have to describe it in one way. With Manufactured Witches and Canyon Cathedral, while it's set in the Great Depression, I had to come up with this entire fantasy ideas and a whole new way of looking at powers and witches and stuff is completely different from anything that's out there. So that world building was a whole different game, which is both fun because it's fun to bring someone into the world of, you know, 1930s, you know, circus life who's never been there. But I didn't invent any of that. That's already there. You know, it's just more me researching it and then painting a picture for that person. While the fantasy stuff is just all me. And that's, yeah, you're right. It's really easy to get kind of like totally immersed with it. And then like trying to get out of it is a whole different thing. I think that's why J.K. Rowling, you know, has the other books that she references and then writes those other books about all the beasts and all this and all that, because to fully give her world its due, so to speak.
Yeah, it's kind of hard. I mean, I've read the Harry Potter books, and sometimes I have to. It's like there are these big world building holes. It's like I would really like to know more about this.
Right, and there's only so much you can put in there, you know. And she has such a big and vibrant world that, you know, it is amazing. But yeah, once you start getting into it, you're like, I want to know more.
Yeah, pretty much. You can often, you know, turn it into a Tolkien. It can quickly become a Tolkien describing a tree instead of actually moving into the action.
Yeah, so. And you know, that's one thing I don't do well with. I know some people who write epic fantasy or high fantasy, you know, they have these like really long 100,000, 150,000 books, word books, and you know, you know, this beautiful imagery of all the ways that this tree is flowing and very, you know, and it's gorgeous. I can't write like that. After a while, I'm just like, yeah, use your imagination. I'm good.
Go look at a painting.
Yeah, it's like, that's gorgeous. And you know, kudos to the writers who do that. But when I'm world building, I want it to be a little bit more practical. I want it to be what the characters are interacting with. I don't personally like to go on and on and on about the background of the way this tree works and the way that this house works and this and that. I like to show my world as the character is experiencing it. So
that's good. You put more of the characters' interaction with them. So can you share something with us that isn't in the blurb? Like, give us, for Maud Circus, can you like tell us a little hint in there, give us a little spoiler taste on what's not in the blurb, like what's going on?
Oh, well, okay, so she's a real person. Did I say that part, that she was a real person?
She was the first tattoo artist, I believe.
Yeah, first female tattoo artist. I did change a lot of things, but I didn't change something. Like, there's one thing that I didn't change no, never mind. I'm not going to tell them.
See, she does this, people. She's like the mistress of this. I'll tell them
this. No, I don't. That's too much. No, I can't say that. There's just, you know, think about tattoos and think about over the decades and think about like what they would mean. So, you know, in the 20s, there were a lot of tattoos, but, you know, because it's a little bit more free. The 30s, not so much. 40s, then you get into, you know, sailors and stuff getting a lot of tattoos. In the 50s, you think about the 50s, you have people coming over with a very horrible tattoo. Think about it, from the Holocaust. And so as these decades go on, you see all these different tattoos and what they mean. And one, I can tell you this part. I don't know if it's true, but in my research, it says it might be true. There were even tattoos in the Victorian era, and that women of high society would get a little maybe tattoo on their wrist or their ankle. And at a party, they would lift up their ankle or show their wrist. Oh, which you wouldn't think about with Victorian society. So that's one big thing that my book tackles is what each decade and what tattoos meant to people. But Maud's husband, who taught her how to tattoo, was taught by a very famous tattooist named Alfred South. And he was rumored to have tattooed Queen Victoria, like the Queen Victoria of England. And and so that's a little teaser that's in the book, and that the tattoo was of a tiger fighting a python.
Oh, nice.
I don't know if that's true, but the rumor is that true, and I just want that to be true. So
the beauty of freedom of fiction, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's all my research says it could be true, and there's rumors that it was true, and like in my head, I just want it to be true. So there you go. That's a little tidbit. You get to learn about tattoos throughout the decades and Queen Victoria's tiger python. I just want to know where she got that tattooed. Like, was it was it on her ankle? Was it on her boob?
Like, funny. So, who is your favorite author? Like, who is the one that you really, really love, that inspires you and that you go back to a lot? And so, who's your favorite, or some of your favorites? Because I know one is hard to choose.
Yeah, one is really hard to choose. I guess it would. I mean, I couldn't choose one. I didn't really think I would like essayists until I found David Sedaris, and I adore David Sedaris. He's a great essayist. He's hilarious, and he's very, very talented. You might know Amy Sedaris. She's on TV a lot, as she's his sister. If we're going through the humor stuff, I love Christopher Moore. He does some really great humor that's mixed in with like history and stuff, so I like him for that. It's just so many things. Like, of course, my favorite book of all time is To Kill a Mockingbird. So, gotta love To Kill a Mockingbird and Harper Lee. And I don't know. It's just, I love so many books and so many writers. Like, don't ask me that. And I love Sue Monk.
I know, it's hard.
If you are a fan of historical fiction at all, and I mentioned Sue Monk Kidd earlier, definitely read Sue Monk Kidd. She's The Secret Life of Bees. That's probably her most well-known one. But yeah, she's a phenomenal writer. She's just quite amazing. But yeah, I didn't, there's a lot of authors that have introduced me to genres I didn't think I would like. Like, I never really thought I would like reading nonfiction until I read Mary Roach. And if, she's kind of narrative nonfiction and with these scientific kind of weird things, and she's amazing. I love her. So I don't know. I have so many favorites. If you like sci-fi, one of my favorite sci-fi writers is John Scalzi. I adore John Scalzi. He makes me laugh every time. No, you haven't? Okay, I'm giving you a list of people then. John Scalzi, definitely.
You have given me a list.
Definitely John Scalzi.
What are some of his titles?
He's probably best known for Red Shirts. And he that one's is kind of a funny one that's like, on that Star Trek, the red shirts always go down and get killed. So it's kind of based on that a little bit. So just go read that. That one's great.
I'll have to look at that. That does sound funny. Okay, so I know what time of day is kind of, you've already answered that one, but what is your favorite time of day to write? I know Little Biscuit keeps you busy, but what is your favorite time of day?
I would say late morning, because then I've, taken him to school. If no one's in the house, I can kind of like have a little breakfast and then start writing. Probably late morning, early afternoon. That's when I get the most done, because the Nuggets at school, and so he's not rampaging through my house. But that or late at night whenever he's gone to bed. Those are always my times.
It seems to be a parent thing. Like, you have to wait until they're at school or in bed, and that's what makes it so hard to be a night owl, because I can't write it's torture. I can't write during the day. because, and then when they get home is when you want to write, and it's like, why is this striking me now?
And then sometimes if you don't have a choice and you have a deadline or something and you're like, I have to write while he's running around, that's always the time all of a sudden you're like by your face going, I want this, can you make me dinner? You know, that's why it's just best not to write when your kids are around. But yeah, I haven't thought about that. Like I like staying up late, but I'm not like super night owl. So yeah, I can see why that would be hard if you don't like writing in the middle of the day.
I have tried. Now I've tried, but blinking cursor syndrome gets me every time. But I find like late at night, like 10 o'clock, when your husband wants your attention is like the time you want to write. And that's when things seem to work. So it's like, I don't know why I get blinking cursor syndrome during the day when why can't I have that golden time now?
Well, you know, one thing that I have figured out with blinking cursor syndrome is that whenever you're writing and you finish a chapter, a lot of times people will finish a chapter and go, okay, I finished the chapter. That's a good time for me to go get a drink or something. Finish that chapter, but then set up the next chapter and write just a few lines of the next chapter. And so then you can get a drink and have your break. When you come back, you're not staring at a blinking cursor and nothing on that page. You've already started your progress. So you're like, oh, okay, yeah, I'm already going, so I can get back into it easier. That's what helps me, at least.
I'll have to try that, because I am one of those that says, okay, good, I finished the chapter, now I can go take a break. Or I do the Pomodoro, you know, the little Pomodoro timer. I have it on my desktop, the little, I call them my tomatoes. I tell my husband on his days off, like, honey, wake me up. You're not a morning person. I'll say, well, just whisper tomatoes in my ear. And it's like, okay, I'm up. Is there coffee? I'm up. Okay, tomatoes, I'm on it.
If my husband whispered tomatoes in my ear, I'd probably deck him. Yeah.
Where?
What? Huh? I already fed you. Go away.
Are you hungry? There's leftovers.
Yeah, that's something that I just kind of figured out whenever I was playing around with it, was like, oh yeah, I don't have as bad of a problem getting back into the writing if I've already kind of started my thought. So you just write a line or two, like, and then she entered the forest and blah, 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 blah. And then you can go get a drink. When you come back, you already kind of started to set up that scene. And so it's not quite such this looming blank page.
And then you have to get her out of the forest or she's going to get eaten. So you kind of have to continue.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, hurry up, horror writer, get her out of there.
Get her out of there.
The demon is coming. Hurry up, they're summoning
it. Yeah, exactly.
Then you feel sorry for the person you put in the forest. So what are your tools? Like, where do you like to write? Because there's so many. There's Dabble, there's Scrivener, there's Noveler, there's blah, blah.
I just like Word. I mean, that's my thing. And I mean, I know some people like Scrivener. I haven't really been able to get into Scrivener. It's a little too heavy-handed for me. Like, I like just being able to set it up how I want to set it up. Word, I think I have a little bit more freedom. Scrivener's like, do you want this to be an outline or a blah, blah, blah? And I'm like, just leave me alone. So I think it's just whatever works best for whatever writer, you know. If you work best in Word, great. Scrivener, great. You know, if you need, sometimes people need that kind of help that, you know, help them outline if they're not used to outlining. I mean, I can outline like that, but I've been doing this a long time. So when I say, oh yeah, I've written a first draft in 10 days before, I mean, I've been doing this for 15 years. So that's, you get used to it. So I like to set up my stuff the way I like to set up my stuff. I know a lot of new writers that don't really know how to outline yet, don't really know where to put their plot and their, you know, how to get their characters going, and more heavy-handed type programs are great for them. So I think it's just whatever works best. What do you use?
I actually, truthfully, I'm an advocate of Scrivener. I always have loved Scrivener, and there is a way that you don't have to make it so drastic if you just stick to the very simple stuff. But I'm writing, like for the series behind me, I have been using Dabble a lot. But for the dark fantasy series for Hunter, my pen name, I've just been using Word because it just seems like it's been flowing better in Word than it was in Dabble. So I alternate depending on where my brain wants to go. Otherwise, seriously, I do Dabble because it is like Scrivener, but it's much more simplistic and the export is much easier. Like if you want a docx, it's going to come out such a pretty clean thing. All you have to do is decorate it or format it the way you want. Otherwise, I'm using Word for Damon Rising, and I'm using Dabble for this series. So it really depends on where the story flows better. Like sometimes it flows good in Word, sometimes it flows better in Dabble.
You know, I think whatever works best for you. I haven't done anything with the other one that you're talking about. And I think my with Scrivener is more like I'm just used to Word, you know, hands off it is, and then like someone's like, just try it. I'm like,
Photoshop.
Like, I'm sure if I messed with this, I could get it to work for me, but I'm just gonna go back to Word because I like it better.
Yeah, it's simpler. It's
just a little bit more flexible, and I'm like, don't tell me what to do. I'll figure this out on my own. Leave me alone, Scrivener.
Scrivener is pretty demanding. It is. It's just I actually do like Word more and more because it's gotten that autosave feature to OneDrive now. It's like they finally woke up and put that in there. To lose like full chapters, which I have. I've lost entire chapters because of Word not saving after I even hit save multiple times.
Yeah.
But that's Dabble is cloud-based, so you can write from wherever you want. And the only thing I have with Dabble is if you happen to write something and you're offline and it gets closed or whatever, you've lost that entire thing. So yeah. I will not write in docs. I have tried this. I have tried docs. It's not my thing. But
I haven't tried that.
I've tried. It's not. It drives me nuts. I don't know why it drives me nuts. It just does.
I think one of the most versatile ones that I found, especially if you're writing a first draft and you're trying to get that down, is I use Word on my iPad Pro, and you can set up an autosave straight to I use Dropbox a lot, straight to Dropbox or straight to cloud or whatever, and it just autosaves constantly as long as you're connected. And if it's not connected, it'll just save to your iPad, and you can go anywhere with it. So, and I have a keyboard and all that stuff. So I found that one, because sometimes the kid's home and the husband's home and I have to get out of the house because it won't leave me alone. I'll go to La Madeleine and have a coffee and a pastry and just just do them. I've written whole books. In fact, I think I wrote almost all of Manufacturer Witches in a La Madeleine, drinking coffee on my iPad.
I have tried the iPad. I have not tried the Word on iPad, but I'll have to because I do a lot of Dropbox backup as well. So because right now I'm on my PC and it's really nice, but sometimes you need to pick up and get out of the house.
Yeah.
So that's what I love about that OneDrive backup or that Dropbox backup that they have now. So it's like, yay, Microsoft Word.
Yeah, and I have a laptop, but it's one I also use to do all my digital art and stuff in. So it's a beast. It's this monster of a laptop. I'm like, I'm not gonna haul this thing off to La Madeleine. The iPad just like it fits in my purse. So
the iPad's great. I have one and I highly suggest anybody who wants to write on the go to get yourself an iPad.
Yeah, you can get really cool little keyboards and it's just perfect.
Yeah, it's easy peasy squeezy, and it's touch screen, so you don't have to worry about. It's nice. So I definitely recommend that. So a lot of authors have different ways of looking at success, and sometimes it can really hurt if they don't get that pretty. Or how do you I guess rank success? How do you call yourself successful? What makes you feel successful? Like I know for me, it's just holding the book in my hand. Like it starts here. It's like thank God.
Yeah. Well, and that's funny because in the beginning, I think everyone's idea of success changes as you get along. Because in the beginning, it was years and years and years before I ever got published at all. And that was like, I will be successful if I get my book published. And that was like my thing. Like you said, like, it's okay, I have it in my hand, it's done. I have it published, I'm a success. But then I found like, okay, yeah, I felt that way. And then I'm like, okay, but then what's next? I got to find another bit of success. And then when my first book won an award, I was like, okay, if I can just win one award, then that's success. And then, yeah, I felt great and successful in that moment. But then it's like, okay, but then so my bar of success keeps moving forward and forward. And I think that's, you know, just who I am. I mean, and I know a lot of people that, you know, they're like, I just want to get published and I'll be happy if I get published. And then they're just happy, keep doing that. I unfortunately am not that way. Every time I go, if I can just win the best overall book of this award, I will be happy and successful. And then I win it and I am happy. And then it's like, okay, but what's next? So right now, I would love to be able to support my family with my books. I'm not there yet. So yes, I've come out with a lot of books and I've been winning awards and I'm super proud. And that's one thing you always need to be, even if you don't think you've hit that next level of success that you want, is to be proud of how far you've come and be proud of the things that you have done. Because, you know, I tell people this all the time. You know how many people say they want to write a book? You know how many people actually finish writing that book? Very, very, very few. So you should be proud of yourself, first of all, for even writing a book. And then, you know how many people have the guts to try to send it out to an agent or an editor, or have the guts to publish it themselves? I mean, it takes major guts, and, you know, and that's an accomplishment. And each little accomplishment you do, you need to praise yourself and be happy about it. I know a lot of people are like, oh, I don't like praise. I don't want to talk about it. I'm like, you need to be proud of yourself, because these are big things. And every time I stop and every time I get nominated for an award or a new book comes out, I always stop and I'm like, be proud of yourself. You know, yeah, you're not supporting your family yet writing, but, you know, you just paid the electric bill with it. And, you know, like, just sit here and be proud of that for a second, which is hard. I think it's hard to live in the moment at any point in time for most people. But yeah, I think every writer, if you can, I think Neil Gaiman said, it was either Neil Gaiman or who is another one of my favorite writers, either Neil Gaiman or Stephen King, that said, I consider you a successful writer if you have, you know, been paid for your writing and paid, and, you know, paid off any bill with it. If someone gave you money for writing you did and you paid a bill, I don't care how small the bill, you paid it, then you're a successful writer. I'm like, I like that.
That sounds like Stephen King.
That's probably Stephen King. It was, you know, Neil Gaiman says some great stuff like that too. So, but yeah, I think most authors will, the idea of success evolves as they go along. But I think it's important that just every time you sit and you just be proud of yourself for at least a few minutes before you look for the next best thing. That's just me personally.
Oh, no, you should. Otherwise, disappointment sets in, because especially if it's your first book, you know, it's like, it's okay because it's 10 times out of 9, 11 times out of 9, 20 times out of 9. It's not going to be a movie. It's not going to be a series. So hold your horses. Be happy to complete it. You completed something that so many just will not do. And that's afterwards, it's like, okay, so because I know you've been on my tail. It's like, you need to get into awards right now.
I've been trying to get you to do that for a while.
No, I did finally, and I'm very glad to put this on my resume, because believe it or not, even if you don't win, you can put this in your writer accolades for when you are quarrying. So for me, if I were to quarry, I could say, well, my won competition, or it got shortlisted by Chanticleer, or it got put on a long list, or it got put on a long list on 2 categories. So you should put that in your accolades, because that does look good to your quarry people. So even if you didn't come back with that shiny sticker, put that on your quarry resume.
Definitely. And that's, you know, I could do a whole show about what to be aware of with contests and who to look for and all that stuff, because I'm an expert at this point. Because there's a lot of contests for indie writers out there, and some of them are good and some of them are bad. But yeah, if you get shortlisted, or if you get, you know, a 5-star review in Reader's Favorites, or you get something like that, then there's, you know, most agents and editors are going to want a little bio at the bottom of your query letter so that they can see And you know, you're going to be like, oh, I'm from here and this, and oh, I've been, you know, shortlisted for this, or oh, this book was, you know, given a rave review on this or whatever. It you know, pops you up to the top, and they go, oh, okay, well, they've done stuff before. It's not just some random person who just sent me their first book and just sent me the very first draft and and doesn't know what they're doing. So you're right. Any kind of any little thing helps. Yeah. And that's the great thing about that there's so many indie like book contests now, is that it does help you kind of raise up, and because there's so many self-published books, so many indie published books, that, you know, you can get lost in the sea, and those help you, you know, distinguish yourself.
Yeah, so definitely pursue those. We might have to have you back on to talk about those, because I know I've nagged about knowing your secrets for those. So I might actually put you back on, because I'm fixing to start a podcast called Indie Rec. So I will want to talk indie games, indie movies, indie books. So we've only got 4 minutes left. Of course, we want to know where to find you, where to find your books, and do we have something coming down the pipeline, all that fun stuff.
Okay, so you can find all my books on Amazon. It's Mod Circus. This one, this is my very first one I've actually self-published. So this is on Amazon, and the sequel to Canyon Cathedral, well, both of these are on Amazon. Well, actually, you can get them on most places. I'm starting the process of writing the third one for that series. I also have, my agent is shopping around a teen middle grade horror series I've been writing. So I don't know if you've been seeing my posts about my illustrations and drawings I've been doing for that book. They might want me to illustrate the monsters and stuff in the book. So it'll be a lot of fun. It's a lot of cryptozoology monsters and stuff, like Wendigos and Rougarous, and, you know, I love cryptozoology. I think that's fascinating. So, but yeah, I'm just working on a lot of stuff. I'm also working with Chattables. I don't know if you know what that is, but it's a company that's been doing interactive stories with Alexa. So basically, as a writer, I write a story that you as the listener interact with. Like my person will ask you a question, then you answer back, and it's an interactive story that you do it all through voice. And so that's kind of a new thing. It's been a lot of fun and very weird to write for, because normally as writers, we're not used to our readers talking back to us.
But we like to hide behind the screen. We have to hide in our
Yeah,
holes.
exactly. We're like, I'm just going to tell you the story and you're going to read it. So that one's a different one. So yeah, I've always got a lot of things going at once, but yeah, you'll definitely be looking for the third and the Manufacturer Witches series. It'll be the last one. Make it a good trilogy.
sometime this year, or like
I'm not sure when it will get published. I need to, you know, start it first. So
that helps.
Either late this year or early next year, probably, something like that.
Oh, well, I'm excited, because I'm gonna pick up. I need those books. So I'll definitely have to get some signed copies from you.
I'll send you some.
I know you said, can you tell us a little bit about Danielle? Is it Danielle? The cat story?
Oh, Daniel's Inferno. Yeah, so that's a novelette actually that I published a while back, and then it got turned into a game, an interactive game. And then I just recently published the second edition, which added a lot of stuff, extra jokes and stuff I put in there that was in the game, and so I added it to the novelette. So that is also on Amazon. It's called Daniel's Inferno, and it's a parody of, you know, Dante's Divine Comedy, the Dante's Inferno, where you are going on a tour of hell, all the 9 circles of hell, and your spirit animal guide is a hellcat named Pudding, who really doesn't want to be there.
I wonder why.
I wonder why she's just like, oh, all right, we got to go to Gluttony. Hold on, here we go. So, yeah. So yeah, it was turned into a video game, which was a lot of fun to do. But yeah, I came out with the second edition recently that's got more jokes. It is very naughty. So if you're not okay with curse words and stuff, don't read that one.
Yeah, definitely. If you don't want Dante's Inferno, do not read Danielle's Inferno, because it always gets worse when you add satire.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Well, thank you so much for being with us. And like I said, I might have to beg you to come back to give us all of your others are quick to get scammed on not of any fault of their own. But thank you for your time, Michelle, and I will be sure to. Of course, absolutely. I was glad you were able to. I wasn't sure you were going to.
But, yeah, no, I'm so happy you invited me. I very much appreciate it. I'm glad I could come.
Hey, no problem. I will be doing this again, so I might pull you again. You have a good rest of your day, and let's go step into mom roles.
Okay, yeah, that's the next part.